Hello and welcome to the Fighting Spirit Podcast. As always, I'm Jason and I'm here to bring you your fight picks for UFC Fight Night, where Robbie Lawler will be taking on Colby Covington in what will be a main event for the ages, in my personal opinion. It's a pretty good card overall. We have all the fights crunched. Let's get into it though. Here's the show. Alright, so as I said, Colby Chaos Covington will be taking on Ruthless Robbie Lawler in our main event taking place in Newark, New Jersey. And this is going to be one hell of a fight, but I think that the ultimate heel right now in MMA, Colby Covington, is going to get it done. And you're probably not on board with that pick. We know Robbie Lawler is a tough fighter. We know that he is an amazing brawler. We know that he will bring the pain when possible, but here's the problem. I think Covington is just the better athlete, the better fighter, and the better tactician, despite his corny, gimmick he has going on right now. When we look at the numbers, I think Robbie Lawler just puts himself in a lot of situations where he absorbs a lot of damage, and I think Covington, the way he puts pressure on guys, can make Robbie pay for it. He's going to keep Robbie on the back foot. He's going to be threatening those takedowns. The guy's an amazing wrestler. Let's not forget, he was a Division I All-American. This guy has the chops. He trains an American top team. He is a guy that can put somebody away with, the record in history of Robbie Lawler. Robbie Lawler is 28-13, and he is on a little bit of a slide at the moment. He has losses to Dos Anjos. He has losses to Askren. His last win was in 2017 against Donald Cerrone, and before that, he lost his title to Woodley. He has not stayed very active. His run up to get the title in 2016 was amazing. Obviously Woodley derailed that, but he hasn't really been the same guy since. Did he maybe beat Askren? Hey, who knows, right? We don't know if, Askren would have, ended up staying out if Robbie hadn't kept punching him. Either way, we ended up with what we got as a decision, and Askren picked up the W there. I think that Robbie, is a little bit over the hill for what it's worth. This is a good test for Covington, though. I think he's going to be able to put his skills on showcase and show the world that he can beat top talent out there, and he already has in a lot of ways. The wins over Maya, wins over Dos Anjos, wins over Dong Hung Kim, Brian Barberina, Max Crawford. He is a decision-heavy fighter. He doesn't shut the door as often as I'd like, but I think that he ultimately has the skills that are going to be enough to dismantle Robbie Lawler, so we are picking Colby Covington in Newark. All right, in our co-main, we're going to have a match of the gritty veterans where Clay the Carpenter Guida is going to be taking on Jim A10 Miller in what should be a very good fight. So both these guys, as I said, gritty, salty veterans, real salt of the earth fighters, fighters, people's, they're fan favorites, let's face fact. Jim Miller is known for his spectacular submissions, Guida also submissions, but a little more of a brawling, relentless style, and both of these guys is tough as hell. This one is a very hard fight to call, and it is very interesting, but I think that Clay Guida is going to have a little bit more to offer here. So both of these guys have amazing ground skills, but we know they're not exactly top tier, with both of them losing to Charles Oliveira. Both of them are coming off of good wins. Obviously, with Guida, with BJ Penn, maybe Penn shouldn't have been in the ring, but still was a good win. He went out there and performed well. We look over at Miller. He had a good win against Jason Gonzalez with a submission with his own rear naked choke, getting it done back in April. When I look at the numbers, though, I just think Clay Guida brings it a little bit heavier with the hands. I don't think he eats as many shots. Both these guys will get into brawls, and I think Guida has a little bit better chin on him out of the two guys here. I ultimately think that he's going to be a little bit better. Also, we look at the camps. We have a Jackson Wink fighter in Clay Guida, so we know he's getting top-tier training, and I think that that's going to speak volumes here, and I think he's ultimately going to be able to get it done. So we are picking Clay, the Carpenter Guida, in the co-main. All right, so the lightweight showcase is going to continue because we have Joaquim Neto BJJ Silva. Not a very good fight name. Maybe he's trying to pay homage to Neto BJJ, but bad fight name. Taking on Nasrat Hopperquest. Anyways, it's I'm not very good with these names at this point. You guys probably know that. And so in this one, it's going to be an interesting matchup, but I think ultimately Nasrat is going to be able to get it done. He is a tri-star fighter. He has a decent reach advantage, and he does not eat punches and eat strikes like Silva does. Silva might have a little bit tougher chin. Guy's never been knocked out, and he certainly eats a lot of hard punches. Beat from hell Pinchel in one recent outing back in 2018 in January. And he hasn't really stayed active since then. He did get a win back in December of 2018 against Jared Gordon, but this will be his first fight of 2019. Nasrat, equally a little bit, taking some time off. His last fight was in October, so both these guys might have a little bit of ring rust. Also, another thing I want to mention, Nasrat on kind of a tear for knockouts up until he made it to the UFC. So he had 8 KOs over his 10 wins, but has yet to pick one up in the UFC, and it makes me think that maybe he isn't performing as well under the lights. So I am hoping that he can pick up a KO, get back to those devastating ways, and stay really competitive. And I think this matchup could speak well for him. Joachim is 11-1 though. Guy has only had one loss against Vince Pinchel. However, I ultimately think Nasrat is going to pick up the W here. Like I said, he's also a tri-star fighter. For Asahabi, one of the best gyms in the world for sure. And I think Nasrat's going to be able to get it done. So we are picking him in Newark. All right, in our next matchup at middleweight, we're going to have GM3 Gerald Mircic taking on Trevin the Problem Giles in what should be a very good contest. And I think really this whole fight is going to depend on, can Mircic pick up takedowns? He has 20 submissions over his 28 wins. He likes to grapple. He likes to get to the floor. And his striking, his 6 KOs over 28 wins, his striking just isn't that great. He eats a lot of shots to try to pick up those knockouts, and he hasn't had one back since 2017 against Eric Spicely. Nothing against Eric Spicely. We know he's not, top guy, and I think Trevin Giles looks like a really good prospect. He has one loss to Zach Cummins in his, third outing in the UFC. I think he was just a little bit off that night. I think he's going to be able to come back and pick up a W here, because I think his takedown defense and the way he doles out strikes, his throwing punches and bunches, is going to be able to get it done against Mircic. I like Mircic a lot. The guy is basically a veteran at this point, even though he's 31 years of age. Unfortunately, he's a little bit on the slide with his 2 losses in his most recent outings against Hermanson and Holland. Granted, that loss to Holland was via split decision. But I just don't think Mircic is going to have the takedown ability, or Trevin's going to have such great takedown defense. He's going to be able to shut down Mircic's most powerful asset and pick up a W here. So we are picking the Problem Giles in this matchup. All right, in our next matchup at lightweight, I think chins are going to be tested here, because we have Scott Hot Sauce Holtzman taking on Dong Hyun Ma, or the Maestro. And this, like I said, could be a test of chins, because the Maestro, Dong Hyun Ma, does eat some punches. He has been knocked out 3 times in his career going up against a guy, Holtzman, who's never been submitted and never been knocked out. And I think Holtzman's going to be able to get it done here because of that. He doesn't eat a lot of shots. He trains over at MMA Lab, very solid gym. He also, is just a really competent grappler. He has only 2 submissions, but his takedown game to get to ground and pound is excellent, right? He does have a loss to Nick Lentz, who is a good wrestler himself, so maybe not the top quality, but I think he's got enough to offer Ma here. Ma's been knocked out quite a few times in the UFC against Dominic Steele, Polo Reyes, and Devontae Smith. I think Holtzman's going to be able to test that chin again and put it on blast, because he's going to pick up a W here. I'm not necessarily calling the KO or the TKO, but I think he's going to test the granite, or actually glass, chin of Dong Hyun Ma. We are picking Hot Sauce Holtzman in this matchup. In our next matchup at light heavyweight, I think we're going to have a very good contest, because Darko Stojic is taking on Kennedy Nzechukwu, and I think that this is going to be very interesting. So we know that Kennedy has power, but he has been derailed by a grappler. He was last defeated by Paul Craig. Before that, though, he was knocking everybody out. Great win on the Dana White Contender Series. And he just ran into a world-class grappler. And I don't think that Darko is that. And I don't think he's going to be able to defeat Kennedy here. Stojic does look good, but he's lost to the likes of Devin Clark in his last outing, and I don't think he's looked that great in the UFC overall. Granted, that went over Jeremy Kimball, but I don't like Darko as much here. I think Kennedy is a world-class striker. He's a very big man, especially for light heavyweight at 6'5". He's got a 7-inch reach advantage over Stojic. I think that he's going to be able to keep on the outside, stop Darko from coming into the pocket, and play a really nice rangy game and dictate the pace of how it goes. Also, I don't see this thing really going to the ground so much. Maybe Kennedy might try to exploit some of that size advantage, but Darko's really the only one we've seen in the UFC attempt any kind of takedown so far. But the takedown defense of Kennedy was pretty decent, or at least okay with Paul Craig. Granted, Paul Craig did eventually get him down and pick up a win, but I don't think Darko has that skill set, and I don't think he's going to pick up the win here. So we are picking Kennedy in Newark. In our next matchup, this time at welterweight, it's going to be interesting because we have Mickey Gall taking on Salim Touahri, and both of these guys need wins. So Gall, obviously in his last outing, not looking very good against the likes of Diego Sanchez, a guy that, is very good, but Mickey Gall at his, prospect level, what we all think he can be, should have beaten Diego, and he was not able to get it done. It looked like he had a hollow gas tank. There were a lot of mistakes in there. And he's taking on a fighter that also desperately needs a win in the UFC. He hasn't had one yet, and that's going to be Salim Touahri. And I think that Touahri is actually going to be the one to get it done here. I think we've seen Gall just not have a deep enough gas tank. And when guys have some kind of, defense to takedowns and grappling, they basically shut his game down. Mickey Gall's boxing, his striking is just not very good. It might look really good when you put him in the ring against CM Punk, but I don't think he's going to be able to take on the likes of Touahri, who has the 6 KOs to his record, whereas Gall has 0, just the 5 submissions. So if he can't get it to the ground, he can't get it done. I don't think he's going to get it done here, which does pain me to say because I do like Mickey Gall, but I think he needs a better striking coach. He needs somebody that can give him that other MMA tool, and I don't think he has it just yet. We saw this with Sanchez. And if his gas tank isn't there, he's not going to be able to exploit that grinding affair of a fight that he would want in a grappling contest, and again, I don't think he's going to be able to do it here. Touahri does have the slightly better hands. He doesn't have the grappling game necessarily at the same level as Gall, but I think it's enough to prevent Gall from picking up the W here. I think Touahri is going to get his first win in the UFC. He's desperate for it, desperate not to get cut, and I think he's going to do it. We are picking Salim Grizzly Touahri in this matchup. All right, I've been burned by this fighter before, but we got Pantera, Antonia Shevchenko, and this time taking on Lucy Bullet Pudilova in what should be a pretty good matchup. So, obviously, last time I said Roxanne Modafferi, there's no way she's going to defeat Antonia Shevchenko. And what does she do? She slams her to the mat repeatedly and picks up a split decision win over Pantera. And, I don't think this is going to happen again because I am picking Shevchenko again. I'm going to hope that her Tiger Muay Thai camp, working with her sister, the best 125er in the world, Valentina, I think that she's worked enough of a game that I think she can prevent any kind of ground attack. Also, Lucy doesn't have a whole bunch, big ground attack, so I think that, helps things out. This thing stays as a striking contest. Antonia Shevchenko has great output. She doesn't get hit a lot. It's just those takedowns she really needs to worry about, and I think she can outdo Pudilova here. I think she's ultimately the better fighter. So in this one, we are picking Antonia Shevchenko, hoping she can redeem us as a pick in this matchup. The flyweight division must still be alive at men's because we have Matt Danger Schnell taking on Jordan Espinosa in what should be a pretty good fight. So we have both fighters, looking really good in the UFC. We got one American top teamer in Danger Schnell, and I think that even though he trains at the better camp, it's not going to be enough. You thought I was going to say it the other way around. It's not going to be enough to get it done. So Schnell is on a great set of wins right now. Wins over Marco Beltran, Inoue, and Louis Smolka. However, I think that Jordan Espinosa is also on an equally good win streak with wins over Eric Shelton and Riley Dutro. So both of these guys are looking fire right now. But I think ultimately the striking output and the very small reach advantage for Espinosa are going to be enough to get the job done here. Also, I think that the grappling or at least takedown element of Espinosa's game is slightly better. I think Schnell's takedown defense isn't quite as good, even though he does have maybe a better submission game itself. But you got to chain these things together. You can't just be a submission artist if you can't dictate the takedown in the top game or bottom game or wherever you feel the most comfortable. And I think that's where Espinosa has the slight edge in the grappling game. Not necessarily, the technique to pull an arm bar or get a triangle, but to get into position to maintain that. And that's what I mean a lot of times when I say a guy is a better grappler. It's the total package. It's not just one single element. And I think here Espinosa has it. So we are picking him in this flyweight matchup Phone Dana, division's not dead. Let's keep it going. I am a fan of men's flyweight. All right, moving to the other side of the flyweight coin, we have ladies flyweight, where Mara Romero Borella, Marvila, is taking on Lucky Lauren Murphy in what should be an interesting fight. So both fighters come out of excellent gyms. American Top Team for Mara, MMA Lab for Lauren, and I do think American Top Team is slightly better, however, both top quality gyms. Also, when I look at the numbers, I think that we have near equal grapplers, but I think slight edge in striking to Borella. Now, the knockouts don't necessarily speak to this, but I think that she just doesn't get hit as much. When we look at points and making contact, I think Borella has a slight advantage. Murphy's going to be more willing to get in there and turn into a dogfight and brawl. However, if Borella's smart, she won't fall for that, and she'll keep it her fight. She'll make it a point-style matchup if necessary and potentially get this thing to the ground, where I think she has a very small advantage. It's near even, but a very small advantage because she does have those submissions to her game, whereas Murphy is mostly about prevention and has never gone or gotten a submission yet to her record. So I do like Romero Borella here a little bit better. We are picking Mara in this matchup. All right, we have two more here. These are debuting matchups, so there's not as much to talk about, but we have Miranda Granger taking on Hannah Goldie. These are some very, very green fighters. Granger is 4-4. Hannah Goldie is 2-2. She must have some real skills in order to be in the UFC at this point. I'm not sure how she is. I ultimately don't think she has enough experience, though. I like Granger here, but these are really you pick'ems without, a whole lot of information. So I like Granger in this one. And then moving on to the men's side, we have Claudio Da Silva taking on Cole Williams. Cole Williams does look like a really hot prospect coming in, but we've seen really good performances out of Claudio Silva thus far in the UFC. He's not making his debut. He's beaten Danny Roberts, Nordine Talib, Leon Edwards. This guy has some really, really good wins, and I don't think that Cole Williams, just coming out of, CFFC is going to be able to hang with a guy like Claudio. Also, Cole hasn't fought since September of 2018, so there's a little bit of a layoff there, and we know that Claudio is, staying active with a win over Danny Roberts on March 16th, 2019. I like Claudio here. I'm not sure why they're giving Cole Williams him in his first outing, but he must have wanted a tough contest because he's got it. We are picking Da Silva ultimately in this one. Let's go over our picks one more time. We have Covington, Guida, Nassarat, Giles, Holtzman, Kennedy, Tuari, Shevchenko, Espinoza, Borella, Granger, and Da Silva to round things out. All right, so in our last podcast, we did have an email in the mailbag, but I did not get to it. So let's get into it on this full-length Fighting Spirit podcast. So David writes to us, "Hey, Jay, listener here in France, congrats on the 7-4. Thank you very much. I had to get back to our winning ways," and he thanks me as well. Welcome back to the winning side. Do you think something like machine learning could become part of your fight picks? So that is a rather interesting question. The only reason it's interesting is because it's something I would love to do and really do not have the technical aptitude to employ it in really any way. So I basically do human learning on this, and what I do is, I go back, I back test, I try to make adjustments as needed, slight ones from time to time, and just see what works best. Last week we had a good record with the new metric. We're trying it out again. A machine could do this, a million times over in the time it takes me just to really redo one. So I would love to employ it. I just don't have the technical know-how. I'm doing most of this on spreadsheets. It's pretty simplistic. There's not a whole lot of technicalness to it. There's no web scraping. I get all of this by hand. That's not to say I haven't played around with things like that, but I'm not sure ultimately if it's like from the opportunity cost area, if it makes sense for me to, go that way and invest all that time if ultimately I'm still making adjustments in the metric and trying to improve accuracy. Now, machine learning could potentially fix that and do it for me. Again, though, I just don't have the skill set to do that. Unfortunately, it's just beyond me. If there's some kind of easy way to do it that you or anybody out there listening has an idea about, please let me know, because I'd be more than happy to employ some kind of, machine learning to the algorithm and see if it can be improved. I'm always looking to get better, and if it takes computers and machines to do it, I am entirely open to it. So I hope that answers your question, David, and I want to thank you for writing in. I always love the mailbag portion of this anytime I get a question. All right, so if you want to write in, you can get in touch with the Fighting Spirit Podcast at fightingspiritpodcast@gmail.com. You can get in touch with us on Twitter at MMA Fight Picks 01. We're also on YouTube at the Fighting Spirit Podcast. Please like and subscribe. We also have a Patreon as well in the description below of your podcast or of this video on YouTube. Please go ahead and support the show there at a tier that makes the most sense for you. There's also a video out there to explain the tiers, so I don't want to be throwing that to everyone each time. So please look at that if that's something you'd like to do. And I always thank you for your kindness and generosity if you choose to support the Fighting Spirit Podcast in any way that you like. All right, so I will be back with the retrospective come Saturday or Sunday. It really depends on when this thing ends up finishing. Also depends on how my Sunday goes. This past one, I had to do it, late at night on Sunday as opposed to the morning, just the way things worked out. And, I try to get out as early as possible, so I apologize for the slight delay, and I try to avoid that in the future. But until I speak with you again, happy fight picking.